Welcome to the Outer Realm with Michelle Desrochers and Amelia Pisano. Airing live on the United Public Radio Network, 105.3 FM in New Orleans.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Wednesday night segment of The Outer Realm. We are broadcasting live on the United Public Radio Network UFO Paranormal Radio Network 105.3 from the Gulf Coast, 107.7 FM from New Orleans. We are fully sponsored by the amazing people over at Folgers Coffee who have been a part of our journey since the very beginning. So thank you, Folgers. We couldn't do it without you, nor would we want to. Also, big thank you to Justice Snicker, a.k.a. Dr. Snick, the sonic surgeon, for the contribution of his time, his music, and his voice for the intro that you just heard. He's an award-winning composer of Halloween horror, sci-fi, and dark wave electronic music, which can be found on all of your favorite streaming platforms. Thank you, thank you. Also, big thank you to Steve McGinnis, the artist behind the banners and logos here at the show. Check him out on Facebook and Instagram. Does great commission pieces, however, specializes, of course, in the Halloween genre. So tonight we welcome back our friend Ryan Stacey, fellow UPRN radio host of Skeptical Sleuth, which airs Mondays at 5 p.m. Eastern. You'll have to come check him out. He is a director of TESA Canada. He will be discussing UFO disclosure, research and analysis, contactee and abductee support, and so much more. Now, guys, you know the drill. We are at 8 different locations all at one time, kind of like a superhighway coming down into one lane. So, of course, we'll be able to get to you all as we can. And here's Heidi from Instagram. Hi, Heidi. Welcome, welcome.
Colorado.
Lisa. Hello. Wayne. Oh, boy. Okay, who's doing that?
Hi, Wayne.
Oh, my goodness.
I didn't touch anything.
No.
It's usually me, but I didn't touch anything. I swear.
I know. So, anyway, without further ado, welcome our special guest, Ryan.
Yay.
Hi, full disclosure, that was me. I forgot that I wasn't.
You weren't hosting?
Oh, yeah.
It's a tough
all
one
this
when
coming
you're
up. I'm like, I didn't do it.
No, it was me. It was totally me. Sorry.
It's a tough one when you're a host and you guest on a show that uses the same like StreamYard, and you're just okay, keep my hands off that mouse because it's not mine.
I know it's really hard. I had on our open mic last week, Carolyn Shellhorn from Spirit Switchboard, also on our network, and she was a guest co-host. So I could see her just itching. She was just seeing something. I'm like, oh, for God's sake, just put it up. What I tell our hosts who do have control of the board, if there's something you would like to address, whether it's a comment or a question, just put a little star on it, and when we're ready, then we can just put it up and you can address it. How about that?
Well, what I did is I put it full screen, so that because I like that idea where you like leave the mouse alone.
Yeah, that's what I do.
And since I don't have to worry about all this stuff, I'm just gonna sit back and not
enjoy the ride.
It's so much. It's just so much easier to do that because I can't sit on my hands. So
there we go. Make it official. Well, welcome back, Ryan. It's been a while.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Pleasure. And now, of course, you're a fellow host here at United Public Radio.
Yes, I am. Thanks to you. I appreciate the invite, and I'm glad it's working out. It's working out for us. Working out for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Tell us a little bit about the show so people could come and check you out Mondays at 5 Eastern.
Yeah, so I'm starting a new show called The Skeptical Sleuth. So I've kind of taken on the handle of, or the moniker of actually just calling myself that, which is a positive change from the spoiler, because that's what I used to be called. So I used to have a podcast called Uncharted Case Files. I did that many years, but that was also like, I like the style, but it was still rooted with, had its roots from MUFON. So I kind of wanted to let that chapter go finally. And what I plan to do with it, since the first few episodes, I'm just going over the Experiencers and Support Association, which is an organization that I have founded in my response to MUFON's lack of support. And I'm going to be showcasing some documents I've gotten from the Canadian government, explain why they're important, what I've done with them, what they mean. I am going to eventually get into civilian cases as well, which I've been neglecting for quite some time because I have to build a support side. So for those of you who know me, I'm a veteran investigator. I'm a licensed investigator. I eat, sleep, and breathe investigations, and I've had a tremendous career in bringing a whole bunch of stuff to the surface. People are wondering if I'm gone. I'm not gone. I just investigations can only bring you so far, and I kind of put myself on the back burner of investigating until I can find enough support, because a lot of the experiencers come forward and need support immediately, or they need something afterwards, and me telling them I don't know what it is isn't enough support, in my opinion.
Right.
So this podcast has given me the opportunity to,
put it out there.
The investigations again, which I've missed for a while. So
I think it's one of the best parts of it. It's just, I love discovery. Personally, I love hearing something for the first time and trying to get it all sorted out. So you do so much. Where's the best place to start? Because Canada, from what I understand, had disclosed some of the UFO files a few years ago.
Around 1992 or so, they've created an archive of everything that they had since 1952, the start of Project Magnet, which is the Canadian equivalent of Project Blue Book. So they've declassified all that stuff, and it's been available. And then everybody, like Grant Cameron and Chris Rutowski, Christopher Stiles, a lot of all those people that should be familiar in Canada, had done their work over the years and explained a lot of those documents from 1952 or whatever up to current. In 2016, I got a declassified document from the Canadian government that explained that they're still looking into UFOs. So there was a gap between 92 and to 2016 or whatever, when nobody really thought that the program had ended. Well, it didn't end. People just stopped asking. So I asked, I got, and then all of a sudden, to fill the gap between 92 and now, I've had a lot of documents released. I've given a lot of documents to CTV News. There's a journalist out there who writes on Canadian declassified documents. I've given him majority of the information to make it out to the news. And now we're kind of in this game of cat and mouse where I'm not giving him anything and he's not giving me anything because, he's trying to make money off of what he's doing. But as a journalist.
Can I make just a little suggestion? Don't give anything to any news media right now.
No, I give what is important. So the last thing I gave to the news media, and I got credit for, was a declassified document that identified that surveillance balloon from the Chinese government that was shot down in Canada. So
yes, good for you.
I got my name read out. I got credit where credit was due.
Yeah.
All that other stuff. Next day, I kid you not, black helicopter circling my house. No problem.
Oh boy!
That's when you know you got something, Ryan.
It was satellite balloons, and
you made it when.
One thing that's not woo, and they're like, oh yeah, let's but
No, it's just because everything's such a mess right now. So you don't really want to let anything go that you might not get back.
Oh, I know.
Just wait on it. That's all I'm saying.
Oh, it's a mess. I've
Yeah,
also
you know you made it when the black helicopters come out.
There's a
and pick you
Chinook
up.
over my house.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, dear Martha, dear Martha.
So, do you feel like did they really disclose, or are we just getting
Well, yeah,
tidbits on a need to know basis?
no, they disclosed everything that they have. That's at risk of coming out. So,
Right.
like when we do a Freedom of Information request, we have to be specific on what it is we're requesting. We need to have significant evidence to prove that there is a reason for the request. We can't just like ask for everything because they'll send us what they have and we assume that's everything. But unless you're specifically call back something in the document, they won't provide it. Everything comes redacted, of course. Canada doesn't redact nearly as much as the American government does. I've seen whole pages from American documents redacted, whereas ours has not so much. But like if you read through the document and then it might speak to other forms of evidence, and then you can go back to them and be like, well, where's the evidence mentioned in here? Sometimes you get it. Sometimes they say it was destroyed, or sometimes they say we can't find it. So it really depends on what you ask and who you talk to and whether or not you trust that. Here's the thing, right? Like,
Yeah.
we have the ability to ask for information. We have and they have the obligation to release said information, but we really don't know the original from what's being released.
Right.
You'd be getting something, yeah, it's redacted, sure, but is that the original document that's been redacted, or is there other things that are missing? So there's a lot of possibilities, but if you don't trust the government, well, then you're never going to find peace.
Does anybody?
Well, you can trust them with some things, right? So I look at it, back to disclosure. Disclosure has happened. It is happening.
Right.
They're sharing whatever they know.
Right.
I just finished going through the ARROW document in the United States and index it on the website so I can extract all the who, what, where, and when, all the aircraft that they identified. And I'm looking at it thinking, okay, like there's no threat, there's no issues.
Right.
You know, this at this part, but that doesn't mean extraterrestrials and UFOs from outer space don't exist. It just
or from Earth.
See, that's an interesting statement, though, Ryan. I mean, let's.
This is a distraction. This is the well-played distraction that is unfolding. But I still continue to request documents because I don't know if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
I have a gut feeling. I've done this many, many years. I'm still a sucker to be drawn back into this UFO phenomenon because I could be wrong.
So, okay, well, we'll back up. In your opinion, from your research to date, okay, what do you think people are in contact with? Do you think they're in contact more with, let's say, ours, as in, humanity, or are they from like interdimensional, dimensional beings?
Well, see, contact experiences have to be separate from the UFO experience. Just because you see a craft in the sky that you can't identify, you cannot assume that there's something.
It's 100%.
Right?
100%.
If you're having a contactee experience, meaning you see a being is observed. That's what I use in my Ultraspectrum Classification System. I say beings observed. UFOs are aerial activity. Something's in the sky. So that could be an orb as well.
Could be anything. It's unidentified. Right.
That you just don't know what it is. And I separate the two. So with the being observed, and there's visitation. There's two classifications that I have, or two categories. And being observed is a scenario where you see something like a shadow figure or something, an apparition, full body, half body, whatever the case may be, and you observe it. It observes you, or you don't know. Intent is unknown. And that's what's important, because you don't know if that person sees you or that being sees you as well. And And if you can, or there's no immediate interaction from that, then the assumption that's made on the investigative point of view is that you may have some sort of enhanced psyche where you're able to see into the ultraspectrum or the ether or the space, the source, whatever you want to call it. I call it ultraspectrum. Then you have visitation where you know the intent. So you see it, it looks at you, you give it a nod, it gives you a nod back. You guys, you know that, we see each other.
Right.
And, and that is a whole different thing. So
right.
when you get into contact experiences and then you you see the being and then you see the craft, okay, now we can say that this being may be associated with this craft.
Mm-hmm.
Unless the being doesn't go anywhere near the craft. It could be something separate, right? So there's a lot of missing information that we see.
A lot of variables.
Yeah, but a lot of us, when we're putting these experiences together, we blend these things together with these assumptions and opinions, which makes it harder to investigate. So this part of it, I believe, is happening, but I think it's happening in a fourth or fifth dimension. It's a consciousness or a conscious experience or an ultra interdimensional experience. The issue is, I strongly believe, because I measure, I do my investigations by studying the people, not so much the experience itself, is they cannot tell the difference on whether or not it's these scissors are in the three-dimensional world or in my mind. And the experiences are so real and the details are so vivid and the information and the drawings that are shared are interesting. And I get comparisons all the time. People who don't know each other, who don't have any pictures or tried to take a picture, nothing showed up. Well, maybe it didn't show up because it's not in the three-dimensional. It's not in the physical. Right. Now we're talking, okay, it's in my head. Well, if it's in your head, doesn't mean you're psychotic, doesn't mean you're mentally ill. It just means that's where it is. So that's where we have to focus. And how do we focus on your mind is, well, we have to do hypnosis, or we have to get you to remember and draw, do some things to pull. So
this is primarily for people who basically have just had displaced memory of their experience.
Well, it has to be in some way, because if it's I also approach the phenomenon looking for a suspect, from a criminal element. So if a being is in your room without permission, it's against the law. So could anybody get in the room? If nobody can get in the room, everything's locked, all the safety securities are present, then it's only there in their mind. Okay, fine. It's in your mind. You can relax and go to bed. No. How did it get in your mind? Is it an imagination? Was it the movie you watched the night before? Are you having some drama? Or
what if you're awake and you just see it?
Or it's implanted deliberately by the Western Canadian government. There's all these evidence of these tools that are used to infiltrate the mind.
Well, what if you just see it? Mine was my experience. I was wide awake. It was right there in the room. I'm just
did you anybody else see it?
No, I was there by myself, and I was just like, I was fully wide awake.
But is it in the physical, though? Did you see it in a combination between the interdimensional?
Oh, yeah. I was fully awake, fully full on, three-dimensional anyway. I mean. Where
did it go? Where did it come from?
Well, let's put it this way. Where it came from is more interesting. Yeah. Where it went, I might have said something like when I looked at it and said, nope. And then I rolled over. I just I'm totally wanted nothing. I wasn't having it. Pretty much, I wanted nothing to do with it. So I just rolled over and went, nope. Yeah. So where it went after that, I don't know.
And you've had other experiences, so you know what you're looking at. But for people who don't, I have a question for you, Ryan. Do you do some form of questionnaire of a psych evaluation just to make sure?
Well, I'm a licensed private investigator. I am not a licensed therapist or anything. I do have a background in criminology, sociology, and psychology. So I do markers. I do, which is why earlier I said I wanted to focus on the support side of things, because I can tell that trauma exists Whether it's caused by the extraterrestrial or the paranormal entities or not, that's not, that's yet to be determined. But I've been looking for someone within the medical field that has the credentials, that's able to assist with things like this, to share information back and forth, and at the same time be able to tell me in real time that, yeah, there's a mental illness that is present, but it doesn't make sense with the experience, or it's not relevant and things like that, because
and medication as well, right?
Well, exactly. So sorry, go ahead.
Do you do your own regressions, or do you have someone who does that for them?
I had someone that used to do them for me, but I would prep them because I don't want them to know the questions or ask leading questions, because there are hypnotherapists that just, if they know, they're going to drive them to this, and then feeds the imagination. So I've been having a really hard time replacing that one. So I just don't use her anymore, because she's been over the top in massaging information to what appears to encourage them to continue to come back. And when they continue to come back, they continue to pay. So there's a bit of a money thing that gets in.
Well, you know someone, and you don't even know that you know someone who does it.
Okay, you do.
And Michelle will tell you after. No, not me.
So, well, I can't remember. But okay, well, if there's someone within the network, then definitely the more the better. Because it's got to be careful, because even with my field, in the criminal field, okay, so I may have talked about this on the last episode, but this would be a good point to bring it up. If the experience is negative in such a way where I got to be mindful of my words, because where I'm at, if there is some foul play involved in private areas, we'll say, where that needs to be investigated. Regardless, the assumption is an extraterrestrial or paranormal, based on belief, based on whatever they know, experience, whatever. There's a lot of stuff that's mixed into that. So we have to believe the experiencer. At the same time, it's possible it wasn't that, and it was somebody you knew, and trauma has created this imaginatory thing to block out this horrific thing that happened.
How often have you encountered that specifically?
4 times, I think.
Okay, interesting. So it's like it's
very delicate
to protect.
Well, the thing is once you go into hypnosis,
right,
and you're brought back into that point, if you're able to be hypnotized, can be. If you're able to be hypnotized and you're brought back into that space and you start explaining things, as long as you're not asked leading questions like, hey, you're wearing, look over towards that purple book, nothing like that. Just, what do you see on the dresser? After the dresser's been named, right? So you got to feed off of that. Right. When they identify the culprit or the person responsible or thing responsible, in those 4 times they identified and named people within their family. To one time the person was in the room, so then as a licensed investigator, I now have a criminal investigation.
You have no choice.
I have no choice.
No. Once you know of the crime, that's your oath.
The other issue is finding a hypnotherapist that will do that as well, and assess them appropriately, and then turn them more, tell the proper authorities if there's abuse or anything like that too. And then you have, so on one hand, just solved it for you. It wasn't aliens, it wasn't ghosts,
it's worse.
But it's worse. So you can't leave them. You can't just leave them hanging. So they still need support. They still need therapy. So
you have to be careful how you bring that out, right? Because you could put them into PTSD. You can put them back into trauma.
So that's exactly right. And I don't want to take the liability, because even though I could do it and I understand how to do it delicately and I know all the things that are needed, I'm not qualified. So
you're not a doctor. Yeah.
Right. So we still need a doctor of sorts on the team. The problem is they lose their license. They lose their practice if they touch any of this stuff. If I was a police officer instead of a private detective, I lose my job. if I was a government worker and I came forward and do all this stuff, I'd lose my job. So there's a lot of risks. So I want to support the experiencers. I want them to have support, but at the same time, the people that are providing the supports are charlatans for the most part, out to take advantage of them and abuse them more, but because there's financial gain that they can get. Benefits don't kick in for extraterrestrial explorer, hypnosis. So there's a lot of other logistics that gets in the way. So what I'm working on is called a program called Experiencers Anonymous. We've had it before where it was a social group, but we didn't really have any medical practitioners involved. I do have one person that is that had vetted that is interested in assisting at least to get the program going again, but it's not going to be limited to one person. It's just as many people.
I was just going to say that you need more than one person to help you. Yeah.
Like if they're in a certain area, then maybe it'd be best they go into the office and things like that too. But it can also be done virtually. Right. So I've done virtual therapy, like I was PTSD in service in the Army and whatnot.
It's really hard because you have to wear a lot of hats. I know when I worked heavily in the paranormal field and the type of situations that I pretty much focused on, I would require either psychiatric or psychological assessments, and I would ask for a second opinion. Right, which didn't seem to have the same stigma as what you have to do.
Well,
like it's harder. It just seems like from what you're saying, it's a lot harder for you to be able to get somebody to say, "Look, just give me an assessment."
There's a lot of mental health in this, in this world, and I don't like to say, some of these mental disabilities, or it could be mental abilities. They could be gifts, and things like that. They could be enhancement, like, anyone on the autism spectrum and things like that, I would say is like a gift. It's just, even psychics and mediums and clairvoyants, those who can feel, that's a gift. Like, that's not a mental issue. That's just, but maybe it's mental because you're using your mind, but your mind's more powerful, like there's a different way to look at it. So the same thing, but let's talk like using alcohol or cannabis or marijuana or whatever you want to talk about.
Right.
In terms of credibility. So back in the day when I was working with MUFON, and MUFON had determined that any use of alcohol, any use of drugs or prescription medication that altered the mind would deem the person uncredible.
Right.
And then they would do this scale where they would ask, all these questions like, where do you work? How much money do you make? How many people in your family? Where do they live? All these other questions.
Is it the CRA?
CIA, possibly.
CRA, Canada Revenue Service.
Yeah.
How many people in your house? What do they make?
Yeah. So, and they use that index to determine their credibility based on their economical situation. I don't think is, I never agreed with it and I never used it. And I always argued it. So you're drunk, out of your mind, and you witness something. Yeah, you're not credible in the eyes of a court perhaps, or in the jury and things like that, because the alcohol was in your system at that time. But you still have to look at the other evidence that was collected. Just because you were intoxicated doesn't mean you couldn't take a picture. Doesn't mean you couldn't, draw from memory when you were sober. There's a lot of things that can be pulled out but it's important to understand that was a factor so you can rule it out. Be honest with me. Yeah, I smoked a joint. Okay, awesome. What time, when? Okay, blah blah blah. Have you done it before? How often? Okay, so this is a norm. This is normal for you because you are, you have a tolerance, right? Not just so. I have hallucinations and stuff, and diagnosed with this and blah blah blah. So I must be crazy. Well, you could. That's what the doctor says. But let's talk about what you saw. Can you draw it for me? Okay, thank you for drawing it for me. Here's something for you. This person over here in this area, drew the same thing, and they weren't under any influence. This person over here was drinking alcohol, drew the same thing, 5 miles down the road from you. right? So all of a sudden, that part doesn't matter anymore. It's now looking at the analogical evidence, these drawings or this picture or whatever they have, and be like, okay, what does this documentative evidence have in common? And that piece no longer becomes relevant. It's dismissed. And so when you're working with a person one-on-one and you're trying to get that case in the news or in a book, or if you're trying to monetize it in any way, make money from it, you're concerned about people ripping it apart and not being credible, because then what happens is you lose your credibility, you lose your finance, you lose your money and all that other stuff. That's the intent going into the investigations. You shouldn't be doing it, in my opinion. And I've shut a lot of people down for that. And I'm the guy everyone loves to hate. Now, on the other hand, doing all the stuff, wearing many hats, not charging for it, spending all my resources and doing all these other things, I'm unable to give everybody the full attention in which they deserve, because I'm inundated with requests. I have so many people asking me to look into it. But in order for me to do it the way it should be, free and not for any political gain or movement, it takes time. And sometimes the experiencers aren't patient. Right? They want answers right away, because maybe they're writing a book or they want to be on TV and they want someone credible to validate.
Well, sometimes maybe they're just afraid and they're concerned. Let's say you have a legitimate experiencer, or contactee. They want to know, am I safe? Is this going to come back? How long has this been happening to me? Do I have to worry about this being ongoing? Right? You're the expert to them. That's why they're coming to you, right?
Yeah, and they might be afraid to even talk about it because it becomes more real.
All I really do in my investigative process is I challenge the evidence, but in a diplomatic way, in a friendly, kind way. If I need more evidence, I'll involve the experiencer to collect the evidence. So I don't need to drive halfway across the world to take pictures of their property and samples and stuff. I can just tell them how to do it, as long as it's safe. You can give me a sample of your grass where you think you saw something there, put it in a paper bag, and it to me, and then we can analyze it here. None of this. I'm on the hunt, going over and doing
we're off
TV show. It's not like that. It's not realistic. The evidence is contaminated, and by the time I get there, the evidence is spoiled. So you would have to call your local police station if it was a crime, because the scene needs to be processed. Sorry, I lost the word there. So
you need CSI, not
more of me in many places. So that way there's like camps, but all under the TESA banner. Because I want to regulate investigations. I want to make sure the process is done a certain way, and I can accomplish more if I have more people helping. But then they don't have to be a licensed investigator either. They could be better. They could be a cop. They can be all these things. They can be anything. They could be a stay-at-home parent or with nothing else to do, but just smart, book smart, right? It doesn't matter if you're willing to put in the time and the effort. I'll tell you what I need. Talk to this person. What do you feel? Okay. And then the training kind of begins in that way. And a lot of the times when I work with the experiencer and I get to challenge it and be like, is there anything in the room? Is anything like this? Well, I don't know. And then they get involved and they figure it out. And then we come to a conclusion. The MUFON way is you figure it all out, ask your questions, you wait, and you send them a response and be like, this is what I think it is. Take it or leave it. If they leave it, they're usually upset. There's a complaint because there's no opportunity to care for the people in MUFON. As much as I would want it, the lack of is the reason why I created TESA, because it wasn't there. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. I got stolen from.
I know you're going strong. I just want to let you go.
So by me working with them, okay, you send me a picture, it's black, there's a light in the sky, and you tell me all these things. Okay, awesome. I need to see what this place looks like during the day. Can you go outside and take a photo, stand exactly where you were, hold the camera the exact same range, just take a daytime photo in front, here and around, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Sometimes I get an email back and like, I did what you asked. I realized that there was a street light across the street. Didn't realize it was there because it was nighttime. Thanks for that. No problem. See you later.
And sometimes people
are involved with it,
Mm-hmm.
right? So then they can actually feel and be like, you know what? I made a mistake. This guy, like, I get it. I understand it. And
Stuff, it could be satellites. You know how many satellites we have in the sky right now?
it could be the space station because they've done that.
I drank something on my foot. Sorry.
Oh no.
It's okay.
Okay.
Yeah, it could be anything. And what I'll do is I'll try and narrow it all down on what it could be. Like, I'm an expert in comparing this to known things, but when you're left with cross out all the known things and you still have nothing, and just because I don't know what it is doesn't mean it's aliens, it just means I don't know what it is. So until more people do it, and then I do a comparison thing when I write my reports, my annual reports, where I try to compare everybody's cases, see what everything has in common. But when I do that, there's a bunch of normalization there.
Yeah, it's tough because we live in a day and age of technology, and there's a lot of things out there. You have drones, you have satellites, you have different sort of aircraft. I was having sightings back in the 70s when there were no satellites.
Yeah.
When I'm looking at something flashing through the night sky up north, I'm like, yeah, that's something.
That's another thing. Is it moving?
Yeah,
they have to. No, I'm saying no. I know yours is, but I'm saying for someone who experiences something, sometimes a light is just that, or sometimes it's Jupiter, sometimes it's the space station. Depends which way you're facing. And I'm sure with the coordinates of their home, and once you know where they are, you probably get a better idea of what could be in the area as well, right?
I can get to a point where it's like, okay, I think it's a drone. This is why. Do you believe this? Yes or no? I do believe it. Thank you. All right.
Yeah, and they're huge, some of them.
I'm glad that you're not paranoid anymore. Glad that you're safe. I'm glad to help. Carry on. Oh, and the other scenario is, I don't agree with you. I know what I saw. It was this and this because this happened another time. This happened another time. And I know that's them coming back. Well, you don't know that they're coming back. You assume that they're coming back because these other experiences has happened to you. This may be, it's correlated, but it doesn't exactly be a causation.
I would ask, why do they feel like it's coming back?
Well, we don't know if this particular one that they think is coming back is actually the same thing.
No, I understand that. My question to them would be, why do you feel like it's this and it keeps happening? I'm just thinking out loud. Like, have you run into that where you're asking them why they feel that it's ET?
Well, yeah, that gets into that. And then you start to get explanations on, I've had multiple experiences, or I was raised this way, or I'm deep in this.
Yeah. Generational, that sort of thing.
Generational stuff. But that still gives me an idea of the person I'm working with, which tells me, like, one of the questions in my reporting system is what, do you identify in any religion or faith or anything like that? The reason for that is, if you tell me that you're Catholic and you're Christian, I'm not going to talk about aliens because you're going to consider them demons, most people. So I need to understand their background, how they were raised, so I can communicate them in a way that they're going to understand and not get angry with it. But it also helps me understand their views and their perspectives. I'm Catholic as well. But
I think things are opening up. There's a lot of Christian faith, staunch Christians who believe that way. The Catholics are actually become pretty relaxed with it, because the Pope's even talked about how they're preparing the flock for possible talk on aliens being.
We'll be talking more about that, because he's actually invited for the first time ever.
You're good, Ryan.
Summit.
You're good.
Yeah, but they're doing that. That's damage control. Something is happening,
right?
And everybody needs to be on board, so that way they can still have control. It would make sense for the Vatican Church to come forward and say something like they've said in the past. It would be naive of us to think that God only made us. It must have made them too. And by saying that statement, still keeps the Catholic Vatican Church in charge.
They do space exploration. They do astrology. They do that. They're well aware of what's out there.
Yeah, but the Catholic Church and the Vatican are two different things, and that's another show.
Well,
But this Pope is also a different person, and I don't want to get into that too much. But he's a little bit more let's say, modernized and more of a free thinker. And that's probably why you're seeing a lot more of that with him, where you might not see it with the next one.
Well, see, this UFO thing, I would love to stop. This is what I'm famous for. This is what I'm known for. And I wish I wasn't known for UFO stuff. Paranormal and consciousness, beings and stuff. That's the stuff that interests me the most. But in order for me to explain that in an academic way, I need to speak to the nuts and bolts people who really believe that these government machines are extraterrestrial machines. This news media run, that is part of it. That is human. That is organizational. That is just people arguing with each other, and it's a flex amongst countries and all that other stuff. That part. The other part where we're being infiltrated in our mind or visited in whatever areas, that is something else entirely different. May be controlled by the government as well, or it may be independent on its own. If it's independent on its own, then that suggests that these beings, whether it's extraterrestrial or paranormal, have the ability of choice to infiltrate your mind when they want to.
Sure.
If these UFOs are extraterrestrial in origin, do you think they're going to listen to the government on whether or not they can cross over a border? No. They're going to do whatever they need to do and show themselves. So the absence of that happening suggests that this machine thing is just secret government programs. Other secret government programs is MK Ultra, studying the mind. You know,
that's a big one.
Here in Penetang, like the old, like right down the street, they used to do that stuff where I live, and you know, like there's all these government PSYOP programs that are in effect. So then you look into Bluebeam, you know, where they're thinking fake alien invasion and all that other stuff. All these things are set up. All the stage is set, even with the wars that are happening, to create a global threat of extraterrestrials in order to arm the satellites in space, to put weapons in space. All that is set for that. Meanwhile, this paranormal ghosts and apparitions and psychosis and so psychological or psychogenic enhancement, people are awakening and developing these powers and all these other things, might feel a little more timid because they don't want to express these things. But they're not being looked. They're being overlooked because this UFO thing is consuming it. The experiencers, contactees, get contacted for a reason. They wouldn't be able to see these people unless there was something biological about them. That's what I, based on my study, there has to be, you know, if this being is standing right here, I can't see it right now. Is it because it doesn't want to reveal itself? Or do I just don't possess the ability to do it at this time? You know, so like these things would coexist. If an intradimension exists, they would have to coexist always. And then it's up to choice and whether or not they show themselves. And when they show themselves, we are shown for a reason. And but then you get into some things where things are done to you, and it's not really understood. You get a scratch, or, you know, in the paranormal world, or a succubus or an incubus, you know, a sleep demon sleeping on your, they call it sleep paralysis, but I mean, who knows what that is? Like, you're having that experience in a natural environment. You know, all those things are happening. So this UFO thing consumes me because I believe the government is also involved with this other stuff, and perhaps
I would agree with you.
But the beings, the source, the higher dimensional beings, whatever you want to call them, aren't involved in the UFO stuff because it doesn't matter. They don't need those vessels to do the work that they do. They're light beings, the Merkaba. Right. You know, you look at into the esoteric stuff. There's these so much energy transfer and things like that they are intellectual and they can choose people whenever they want to do it. So when the bad things happen, I automatically think this is the government stuff. when the good things happen, like I see, because I also measure the feeling of the experiencer. You could report an experience, but I need to know what you want me to do with it. Do you want me to look into it? Is it just for my records? Is it just added to my research? Because there's a different comfort level as to why people report.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to know, is it a positive experience or a negative experience? Because you draw this crazy being that looks horrific, and then you say, oh, it's a pleasant being. Like, I liked it. Well, maybe you have a thing.
Well, you look at the mantis, for example, they look terrifying, and yet people are like, oh no, I had a great experience. You hear it repeatedly. I'm thinking, that's a big bug.
Well,
That's how I look at it. Are you crazy?
Or anything like that? But like, I mean,
if
a spider alien came up to me and
right?
would do this, I'd be like, yeah, okay, like, don't eat me. But like, so what I'm trying to get at is the human being has so many, I wouldn't say flaws. We've been suppressed in so many ways that we haven't had the ability to express this part of us, this magical part, this supernatural part, or the normal part. I guess it's not paranormal anymore. It's just normal. We have the science that shows that we expel energy, our auras, the toroidal field, all these other things, macro, micro, all this stuff, DNA. What do you get into? Genetic memories or time lapse. Like, there's a lot of things that show that the mind is more powerful and that we can do all these things. But that doesn't make it to mainstream media. It's the UFO crap that makes it to the media. So when I think that we as human beings are not giving ourselves enough credit, because we assume that because I can move, an object is moved in the room. Let's look up a poltergeist. Right? You all of a sudden, boom, cupboards open, plates fall down. You don't live by a train station or anything like that. Everything that's never happened before and all this other stuff. You assume it's a poltergeist because of the movie, because of all these other things and all these other stuff. But you don't think it could have been you.
That exactly, like complete psychokinesis, projection.
My job at that point is to question you, like, it could have been. Well, what do you mean it could have been you? Well, let's talk about your day.
Yeah.
Right? What did you do? Well, I was a really stressful day. Okay, awesome. I'm menstruating that day too. Okay, awesome. Like
energy. Yeah.
Right. This is checks the box for what I'm getting at. Right.
Right.
So you're having an emotional day. And what were you thinking before those cupboards opened? I was thinking, oh, I just had enough. And then I said, well, what if when you had enough that energy came out of you and caused all that chaos? Is that possible? Huh. And then it's like, see, there's no aliens, so you don't have to worry about aliens. You don't have to worry about poltergeists. Your house is.
Do you find it's well received? Because I always found it's easier for people to think that there's something terrifying in the house than it is for them to think, hey, I'm a pretty powerful individual if I could project that kind of energy.
It could be both, lock the doors, make sure everything's checked. But, how about this? The next time you report to me, I want you to report to me after you've intentionally tried to do these things. And I've gotten reports back saying, you know what, I moved this thing. I don't know how I did it, but I focused and I did some reading, I did some research, and I moved it. It's like, awesome. So there's evidence that in this particular case that this psychic ability or psychic event was human oriented. And it still doesn't mean they're all like that.
Right.
It's just we've been so dumbed down in society that we don't give ourselves credit that we're super beings. We're super powerful.
That's true. That's true.
Everything that is good for the world has been suppressed.
Of course.
That self-thought, that negative thought that I'm never going to amount to anything and all that other stuff is tough to go by. And then but you still have that power. You still have that DNA in you that gives you the ability to do that. However that works, I don't know that part yet, but it's still present. It's not gone. It's just we immediately assume that the answer comes from above because that's what we've been raised as. That's what we've been told. Now, do you believe everything?
That's conditioning,
right? Government and religion are no different, other than the way that the words are spelt and sound. It's the exact same thing. It's a control of a certain set of beliefs in religion, certain set of laws in government. laws of religion, you know, like it's similar. The fact that we have to believe in a higher power gives us hope, gives us purpose. But what if there isn't a higher power?
Oh,
right?
That makes it hard.
We are the higher power, and all we have to
Right.
simple answers to go back to the Tower of Babel, work together, spread positive energy together to negate the negative. Well, we can't have
it has its own share of controversy.
So then why not create, you know, prior to the year 2019, people were at a point where they were taking control of everything, powerful, influence, happy, a lot of positive energy being spread over.
And that may have been the problem.
And then all of a sudden, something happened, engineered, which we now learn was manufactured and created and done deliberately. You know, we're living in that 3 years later. But what that did is it successfully created a more than 75% negative thought in the world to restore the balance or to switch the sides. So you got to have positive, you got to have negative.
It's the tip to scales.
It's got to be equal, but the tip to scales, it's until we revolt on the other side, there has to be a balance. So too much positive, too much negative. Now here we are in the end times, because the eclipse has happened. All that stuff has been, foretold and all that other stuff.
But there seems to be a sort of awakening going on. The fact that people are even questioning other life, whether they are actually experiencing it or not, the fact that they are willing to accept that it's a possibility, that's a really big thing, especially after what everybody's been through, because you've got those people who lean harder on their faith, and you have those who pull away from their faith if they've had great loss, in their lives because of it. So you're at a bit of an impasse. But I see a lot of people are having awakenings, whether that's just eyes open or whether it's just, no, I know there's something greater. I know there's something out there. I want to explore it. And they're doing it.
Yeah. And I think that the more positive energy that comes out, that'll eventually take over. But that reads into the way that the world is working, because it's energy.
Right.
And there's intelligence involved, where the government knows that if we instill fear, if we instill negative items, the people will react a certain way. I don't think they estimated the toilet paper hoarding. I think that was just something they did not anticipate that was going to happen as a result, but it created that panic.
Of all things. But
So it's done on purpose, which means they have to have a higher level of intelligence of knowing that by causing this, it has a desired effect, which means there's a purpose for it. What is the end game?
Oh, it could be something as simple as reading, a book and making things happen. You can look at the good book itself, a scripture, for example, and all of a sudden, like, we can make this happen. I say, let's make it happen. There's a lot of like we talk about the skeptical mind. The skeptical mind can say, anybody can pick up a book and create things to come to fruition. With that being said, I am a big believer in the ancient mystery schools and esoteric knowledge, and there is a lot out there, and getting into alchemy and things like that. There's all kinds of different things, and holy crap, that's another show.
How much time we got?
I know, right? Hey, sky's the limit. We're the last show of the night.
I can go on forever. But the thing is, what I'm trying to get at is that there's what I've learned. I'm so far from where I was. When I started with MUFON, I was just like these people. Nuts and bolts. This is the only thing that you can measure. 3 dimension, that's it. 4th dimension, you're losing your mind. Well, 4th dimension is time, and it took me forever to actually understand that and comprehend that. And I've learned so much from the experiencers and believing them and understanding them and trying to find roots of possibilities. Is it possible? Well, if this is possible, then this could be possible, and all these other things. And I've learned so much that I even had my own experience. Like I've had a psychogenic experience where I what I call a download, based on the definitions that's been provided for.
Yeah, I've had them. Yeah.
But and those who follow my work or on my website, which is on the banner there, experiencersupport.org, in the TESA symbol is prominent there, and that essentially was just a 2-dimensional image with a bunch of colors and shapes and symbols on it that made no sense to me. 2019 winter solstice, ironically 2019, weird. So I learned and I shared that, and I discover all these coincidences and stuff with this map. And I know from my own experience that the person who made that did not know any of those things, unless the person who made that map is my higher self, my higher consciousness. So I need to understand how that's possible. Is it time travel? Is it someone from the future, myself from the future, coming back to save me in this year? Who knows? Did I do a Mercury rising moment where I intercepted a secret government transmission? Like all these things went through my mind, but I didn't think paranormal. I didn't think extraterrestrial. I just thought why me? Why all these other things? And because I always felt that it was more local. And then if you accompany that with the ancient astronaut theory, where do we actually come from? Maybe we are the beings. We are the extraterrestrials. And then if we are the extraterrestrials, which means we came from extra land, where was that land? It just means extra land. Well,
why can't it be, terrestrial? I mean, there's so much about our planet that we don't know. So many,
it is also debated.
Middle Earth.
It could be in the Middle
Stargates.
Middle Earth, yeah, is
under
there.
the water, right? I mean,
could be
crypto-terrestrials.
There's a lot of sightings of UFOs coming out of water.
Yeah, so we would call those UFOs, unidentified.
I know, yeah.
But if they go from water to air, then they're transmedium, which is also government has technology to do that too. So
they have technology to do everything because obviously they have been in contact and working with them for years. And we know that because when you said you research and you ask for something in the US, you often get it redacted. Pages and pages, which is an absolute validation of you being right, in my opinion.
Well, I appreciate that. And I also
why would they hide it and keep it? Why would they keep it if it wasn't real?
Okay. So I often try to defend the government as well, because I ask myself the why. It's important. So what? They're keeping track of it. They're doing all these other things. Why? That is very, very important. And I often look at it. If extraterrestrials are doing all these other things and there's this galactic war that's happening and all these other things and we're not hearing about it, good, because that means our country's got it under control. I'd be concerned if they didn't know anything about it. I'd be concerned if they were flying all willy-nilly and there was nothing we can do about it. If they exist, it's taken care of. We can relax. Thank you. At the same time, if it's taken care of, maybe it doesn't exist at all. Or what's happening is not what we think it is. It's something else. It's something bigger. Talking about Middle Earth and like the Earth itself has been theorized to be many different forms, many different shapes, many different things. You get into the non-rotational flat plane hills and valleys conversation. Their argument with the shape being different than the globe, isn't really as relevant as their main point is that the government's lying. So if the government's lying about UFOs, can the government be also lying about the shape of the Earth? And are they lying about both? So if they're lying about both, and let's assume that both are true. So extraterrestrial means extra land. So if in the flat Earth model, there is land beyond the ice wall, that is extra land. So the extraterrestrials could come over the wall into our area and therefore be foreign to our little space, our little planet. The interesting thing about that concept is that if they're out here, that's the outer space instead of the outer space. So if we're conned into thinking everything is up when we're out, we can't, those who know to source and call and do all these other things are looking in the wrong direction, which means our efforts are useless. Look at the calendar as an example. It used to be 13 months, 28 equal days. Now it's 12. And they fit all that extra month into the 30, 31, 28 to make it all whatever equal to the same number.
Yes, yeah.
If I'm pagan or if I'm, pagan pretty well covers everything except for Christianity. But if I'm like old world trying to do a ritual that I've done every year on this Julian calendar day, I may be doing it like everybody else is doing it. But in the 13th month calendar, it might happen to be a satanic holiday.
Are we in the Gregorian calendar?
So we, as a civilization, have been lied to many times about many.
Everything's been changed. Even our frequency was changed from 432 to 440. I mean,
how can they do that unless they know more than us? So if the government is controlled, then the government is an extraterrestrial.
They have it. They have an in.
Or they have an in. So there's a negative influence. At least as we perspect it. So that's pure resources. Then we get into the religion part where the Messiah is coming to save us from them. So where are the good guys coming from? Well, maybe the good guys aren't coming. We're the good guys. And we have to wake up. We have to be evolved. And we have
to remember who we are, because we're these beings having a human experience. And there's much more to us than many of us are aware, even though many of us are aware. Maybe it's those of us who are aware. It's our job to wake up the ones who aren't aware. Here's a quick question for you.
Yeah,
Amelia?
I've got it. Hi, Claudette. How are you? Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. And my cousin Chris was earlier. I hope she caught me blowing her kiss. Anyways, Claudette asks, what's the difference between a download and a telepathic message?
So context is important for that. But in my experience, it could be the same thing if I knew the source. So if I were to see, a being and they're looking at me and I hear their voice in my head and I say something, is this you? And they nod their head, I get some immediate validation. I would consider that a telepathic message because I know I'm experiencing it and I know where it's coming from. In this case, I don't know where it's coming from. I don't want to assume where it's coming from. I just know that I was experiencing a traumatic time. I was trying to leave MUFON, but I didn't want to leave MUFON because I didn't want to leave the people, and I didn't want to leave the people until I had a viable resource to continue with, because I had a good reputation with MUFON. I didn't want to waste all the effort and time that I put into that. At the same time, my wife is learning Reiki and experiencing all this other stuff. And she was doing a Reiki session on me as I fell asleep during the winter solstice. So there's a few things that could be combined together, but also are separate. But when I put them all together, it's possible she opened up a portal and I happened to receive the message and it went to me instead of her. And I was obsessed by it and then I wrote it down. And the thing is, wherever it came from, I don't know, But I do know that I was obsessed with it. It was in my mind. I couldn't stop until I got it out. I had a headache. I had a 2-hour drive that I had to drive, and I could not get the image out of my mind. And then as soon as we got home from 2 hours, I'm like, I got to get this thing out of my mind. I don't know what this is. And then I come upstairs and then I start doing it. And I'm a graphic designer. So one of my many talents. But I do remember starting it, but I don't remember finishing it. And when I finished it, I looked at it and I was kind of like, whoa, what's going on? But I do remember parts of it coming out onto the computer. But there was no thought process in terms of, should this color be red? Should this triangle be over?
You just knew it.
Symbol be here. It was like I was doing a step-by-step download from my mind to the computer by copying directions.
That's very similar to channeling.
I didn't ask for it. So in my Ultraspectrum Classification System, this would be considered an unintentional psychogenic event, whereas an intentional psychogenic event is when someone who knows they have the ability is asking for something. So that's it. And then I didn't know what this was. I sat on it forever. I was terrified. I didn't know what's going on. I thought I was going crazy, going through all this other stuff. What do these things mean? And the next year, and then I got the confidence to put it online. And then when I put it online, certain people gravitated for it. I said, I recognize that symbol. That's a symbol for this, and that's a symbol for that, and that's a symbol for this. And then I'm like, okay, that resonates with me. I know these things. I didn't know that before. Maybe I did. So I started putting all these pieces together. And that's how I got into the Flat Earth community, because this something about this image made me think it was a place geographically. I tried to use it on a globe. Didn't make any sense. I'm like, this doesn't make sense. I can't do anything. This thing's moving around. It's too big, because I didn't want to change the scale, right? I just printed it off. It wanted me to be on a computer, so I printed it off in an 8.5 by 11. That's my scale. I don't want to, and that's what I've been working with. Then someone mentioned, Middle Earth and Flat Earth and things like that. So I started to talk to them, get interested and curious about all that other stuff. And they're like, well, then I learned about the Gleason's map. So the Gleason's map is a map of the old world that was created before the globe was, and it's a equal distance map of the world, what they actually put on the globe before the globe is formed, right? And when they do that, Antarctica becomes a shape, but when you unfold it, that's where you get that ice circle around the Earth. So that's where the idea of the ice wall comes from, but it could be either or. But which one came first, the chicken or the egg?
Right.
So that all was like fascinating to me. But the thing that concerns me the most is when I put that symbol dead in the center, it lines up. It makes sense. The tips of the pyramid touch the equator. I can tell time with my map. Something I didn't know until I learned. So subconscious.
Do you want me to show it?
Yeah, you got
off your site. Okay, why don't we show? Because Kathy's asking.
I got one on my wall over there, but it was looking
yeah, a little bit.
Very cool.
Okay, this is the very colorful one. This is we're on Ryan's site right now. Okay.
Yeah, right there.
Wow.
There it is.
So
wow. Templar cross yin and yang.
Yeah, so I've learned that's a Templar cross. Yin and yang is also like sun and moon, balance, negative, all this other things.
Yeah.
You got your 5 senses, or your 5 elements: earth, air, water, fire, and spirit. But that's also in the same shape as the Eastern Star for the female fraternity for Masonry. Those colors are exactly the same. The black, I call them chairs, or I don't know if it's cog or a wheel if it rotates. I don't even know. I experimented with it 3-dimensional as well. But what I've learned is that these symbols, the black colored symbols, represent the 7 liberal arts of science. And then
it sounds like alchemy.
Ryan. Well, it is alchemy. And then you have Masonic symbols. You got the square, plumb rule, and level on that. On the triangle that's on the bottom. Those are specifically degrees from the 2nd degree in Freemasonry. And there's a passage in Freemasonry 2nd degree that said that we take an oath to forever pursue the hidden mysteries in nature and science. And those three symbols are the only three symbols I really recognized.
Mhm.
And then TESA came out of that, TESA, assuming it was clockwise. And then I later got into anagrams and different things, my passcode and all this other stuff on my phone. I've changed it now, but it used to be my thumb moving around, which spelled the word east, which is also there, EAST. And then I started playing around with it and go, well, what's the opposite of TESA? It's Aset, which is the female, which is Inanna, Ishtar.
Nice.
Right?
Right.
But Aset specifically is the African American version before they whitewashed it. And this is information that I didn't know about. And then I started to put this all together. This is representing so a female deity is important. Templars are important. Yin and Yang, flat Earth, all that stuff is important. The center, you got the Star of David, but that's also with the circle around it in the middle with those 12 dots. That is a seal of Solomon.
That's it. I know that. I know the different seals of Solomon. Yeah.
That's one of the seals of Solomon. In the middle is Anu, the symbol, Sumerian symbol as well. And,
right.
And again, none of this stuff I knew until someone else pointed it out to me, and then I researched and put this stuff all together. Now that's me. Now why? We'll get into that why. Why me? And why this? What do I do with it? This message did not come with any instruction manual, that's for sure.
Right.
But what I started to do with it is I just started to realize that I was just to be put it out there and people would come. And as these people gravitate toward me and share knowledge and I share information, and as I learn, things happen. And that's how TESA grew. So the right people came because they were drawn to the symbol. Something meant it. It does things. And all these things extracted. Don't have the image to show you. I wish I had it. Let me see if I got one on my wall I can take down. Take a picture of it. Can you see
it on your website? Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
There's no website. So I'm just going to take a. No, I can't. So I can't do it. No one, but to show it well. But so this is 2-dimension. So I had to learn. Okay, you know what? I understand 3-dimensional. So how do I make this 3D? So then I had a scale where I made each visible object, remove the colors, remove the symbols, because I thought that and I still think, because I have a journal of this, maybe I'll make a book about it one day of what I really think. And I did write an article of what I think about it so far. It is on the website. But working on it in 3D, even though it was only like 3 centimeters per level, I was able to see depth. And when I saw depth, I'm like, this is like a machine. This is a cog. It rotates. It has to do this. What is this doing and why? Then I started thinking about, then I had to learn about 4th dimension, time. Okay, movement. All right, I get this moving. I rotate it. I hooked up I made a model, colored the pieces. You got a triangle, you got circles, and you got all these other layers and stuff. I put it on a fan, turned it on, watched it spin. It wasn't safe. It was dangerous.
Right.
But the motion blur was a circle, and the colors were alternating much like a UFO. And I'm like, well, that's interesting. So then I'm thinking, okay, well, I need to, how do I see this in the 5th dimension? And I'm learning all these other things in the 5th and 6th. Well, you can't, because it's all spiritual and all these other things. But how do I bring that into the 3-dimensional world? So then I started expanding them to have these pieces above each other. So there was space in between.
Right.
And when I did that, I was able to see through the center of the map, and I started to understand hollow Earth. That's the center of the Earth. So can you bring that map back up?
Yeah, 1 second.
You're gonna need
Reminds me of King Arthur's Round Table.
Knights of the Round Table, 12 Zodiac. All these things have
there's a lot there.
Hold on.
It's intense.
There we go.
Okay.
There we go.
So now I'm thinking, okay, I'm looking at the center of the Earth, and everything else is around it. But how big of a scale is it? So when I put it on the Gleason's map, that triangle tip will touch the equator. Okay. But if I focus on just the area, the gray area with the Seal of Solomon on it, and the Knights Templar cross, or the Maltese cross, be more specific, that fits exactly in the Arctic Circle, which puts the Sumerian seal, which is the original seal, that's where Solomon got it from, directly in the center of the Arctic Circle.
Mm-hmm.
Now we talk about an area called Hyperborea, which is an area that was in the Arctic, which had a lot of power, which could be where the Garden of Eden was, all these other things.
Mm-hmm.
Did not know any of this stuff prior to that. It wasn't on TV, it wasn't on any of this stuff because I was brainwashed in the mainstream media and all these other things. So these are quite significant things. So then, as above, so below is another passage from the second degree with Mason.
Yes.
And okay, I'm looking at this stacked this way. What if I were to mirror it and stack this way, as above, so below? And that's when I was able to see, okay, if there is a hole in the center, because that's also government protected, just like Antarctica is.
Yes.
So even if we wanted to explore the possibility of these things being real or not, we can't get there. And that's a question that we need to ask.
I have to ask you, why do you think we can't?
Because it might be possible. This feel, see, I go on feeling, right? My gut and my feeling tells me that this is right.
Right.
My analogical brain tells me it's wrong because there's no evidence to prove it. It's just speculation.
Mm-hmm.
But if I trust
your
instincts, which I'm learning to do because I was never like this, and I was never comfortable because I thought it would affect my credibility, and I start to trust it, it feels good. Just like when it hurt until I put the image on paper, then the feeling went away. And then I started getting these times where it's like, you got to work on it. And I work on it and I'm bothered. I've got anxiety, all that other stuff going. And then once I solve another clue on here that I didn't quite see before because I learned something else in another thing I read, that feeling goes away. So it's like I get these electrical charges that encourages me to do the work, but they're not telling me what I need to do and what it means. It just leaves me there, leaves me hanging.
Well, are you recognizing everything that's being shown to you, not just with this map, but maybe you're getting other downloads that you're just not recognizing? Because sometimes our logical selves sort of pushes away.
Well, the logical side tells me this is terrifying, because if this is the way that the Earth is, then we've been lied to. That's the biggest lie in the whole world. And then I start looking at everything else, and I look at, like, you look at the Earth on Google, everything is CGI. Like, you can tell it's
CGI. For sure.
I mean, you would think by now, there's a lot of circumstantial evidence to support that the Earth itself is at least not the way that it's explained. NASA lies. NASA does all this other stuff. NASA used to be a Disney film studio before it was NASA. So there's a lot of things that people forget about because the generations are changing and they're not learning these things because they're burying the secrets now, so that way the future generation can forget about it. And it's up to us to continue, just like our ancestors before us, to keep this narrative going. But that's the thing. If I'm right, then we have a problem. But what can I do about it? And now let's come back to the why. Okay, this is a long explanation, but I want to circle back to the why. Why would the government hide this from us? Mm-hmm. Well, look how we reacted with the 2019 crisis. Mm-hmm. If we knew that we were in a container underwater with a dome above us and we could not go past that firmament.
Starting to feel like Truman.
Well, that's
I'm starting to feel
just saying.
I'm starting to feel claustrophobic.
Civilization. Why would we continue to work as hard as we do on that idea that when we die we go to heaven?
Well, I look at heaven as just a dimension. Like I just look at an evolution of self. You know what I mean?
One.
I can't go up or down, but I understand the concept of it.
Well, they make it physical. They make it material, and that's what we believe. And that's where. But the old teachings was like internal.
Yes.
Like, I know what I'm talking about now, but back, ask me this, in 2015 when I started, I'd be like, what? Potato?
Yes, right.
But
Yeah.
even in the Bible, it says, I walk beside you. Jesus walks beside you. Is that a hint as it's another dimension?
Well, that's possible. I mean, then you got to get into the question whether or not he is the son of God or he was just a prophet.
Or if he was a and a carpenter.
Or an alien. Okay.
Yes.
We have to take the time for
Prophet, but it seems like the same crap going on.
station sponsor ID.
Yes, definitely.
I
I've been in
know.
the forest. My mouse always acts up at this
I
time.
know.
It just never goes back on.
I know.
Oh my goodness. Okay, amazing. You are listening to The Outer Realm with Michelle Desrochers and Amelia Pisano, coming to you live from the beautiful city of New Orleans on 107.7 FM, as well as the Gulf Coast on 105.3 FM. We're live on Roku channel and archived as well. Our special guest tonight is Ryan Stacey, UFO UAP research contactee support. And he also has a show on Monday nights, right? On this network, UPRN, called The Skeptical Sleuth. So look out for him, show him some love, show up, and make sure you tell him you're there. Join the chat room and let him know that you're there. I promise you're going to love it. So tonight, if you're just tuning in, don't worry about it because you can stream the archives on any platform that you normally use. Simply search United Public Radio and then The Outer Realm to find us. Remember to click like and subscribe. Add us to your playlist so you never miss an episode. Kindly share us with your friends and family. A big, huge shout out to Folgers Coffee. Thank you for your continued support and sponsoring our show. We absolutely love you, and we look forward to many, many years with you. Thank you so much. Our fabulous banner and promo media is courtesy of the incredible horror illustrator, Steve McGinnis. And he is an artist who also creates commissioned pieces as well. So you can find him on Facebook. Check out his artwork. And you never know, you might find something that looks great in your home. Thank you, Steve. Our intro and outro is courtesy of Dr. Snick, the sonic surgeon, aka Justin Snicker, award-winning composer, vocalist, and musician. You can find his music on Amazon and Bandcamp and stream on any platform that you normally use. Find Dr. Snick on Facebook and Instagram, constantly dropping little clips of his music, and the videos are so cool. And thank you, Justin. Don't forget to use or search his music when you're putting your stories together on social media. Just simply search Dr. Snick and all of his music comes up. Lastly, if you are watching us on Facebook or on YouTube, please right now hit that smash it, share it, like button and subscribe. We really appreciate it.
Okay, and we are back.
Yeah.
So it's been informative. It's been on the edge. So let's talk about some of these mysterious places that are right here on good old planet Earth, whatever shape it may be. What about what they're finding in Antarctica? What about places that have these alleged stargates and Göbekli Tepe? Do you know what I just read about Göbekli Tepe today? I just read that the WEF has a 20-year contract that they signed a few years back, that they are the only ones that can excavate Göbekli Tepe, and they believe it should be kept for future generations. And what they have done is they appear to have they've planted trees over top of it.
No.
The roots will eventually damage it. Apparently, only 5% of this place has been excavated, and it is one of the world's oldest ritual locations that was purposely buried. What the heck is your take on that?
How the heck did they even get that permission? Or they just gave it to themselves like everything else they do?
One of the head guys, who's a billionaire, part of the WEF, Turkish, somehow put this together, and they got a $15 million donation to go towards future excavations. But they are the only ones who have any sort of access to a 20-year contract.
I call BS on them for doing that. Sorry.
Why?
Terrible.
But why?
Why is
Yeah.
a big question. So obviously motive, financially gained. There's something there that is of significance that attention is needed. If he's throwing some vegetation on top, then there's obviously intention of hiding it once again.
Well, yeah, because he's still, I'm not mentioning names, but I mean, he's not going to be with us forever. And he still
Doesn't
has
matter.
children
It's
that
the,
run
it's
that.
the whole
But his,
organization.
So
I see his children stepping up in his place.
if you're going to demolish a building, would you demolish, if you were given the opportunity to pick when it was demolished, would you remove everything that's important from that building before you demolish it?
Absolutely.
So my question is, what is no longer there that they're able to, or what may still be there? There's got to be something to do with it.
It's like
a
the raid on Diddy's
ritualistic
house.
location, the oldest ritualistic site in the world.
Yeah. Well, someone has whatever was in it somewhere.
Or they're using it.
Well, everyone, in order for this to be like the way that it is, people got to be in on it.
What is the story with it? What's inside of it?
It's believed that there was a Stargate. No, there's more pillars underneath it.
Yeah.
But there was a rumor or hearsay that it could have been a Stargate.
Oh.
There would be multiple Stargates because they would be usually placed on ley lines within the circuit of the Earth.
Yes.
To travel from one area to another. Free energy is something that many people have created and then died shortly after. So like Tesla and get into Tartarians. I don't know if you guys understand.
Oh yeah. I know, yeah, well versed in Tartaria.
You got some Tartarian stuff in the background, looks like. But
I'm well versed in that. Yeah.
So so there is evidence of civilization having access to free energy. Where did they get it from? It had to have been reverse engineered. Go back to the UFOs. Where did they get it from? It was reverse engineered from Germany. Well, then where did Germany get it? Well, Hitler may have found it in Antarctica. So all of these places of war and things like that of importance, there's obviously things there because the text said that they were there because the people in the past wrote about it so it could be used and not be forgotten. But then they took control and they burned the books and then they put it in the Vatican Church, locked it all up. So people still know what's really going on. So this is normal behavior. I'm not surprised. But where did they remove the Stargates? And if so, where are they? And are they using them?
Well, there's supposed to be many of them throughout the world, but around Göbekli Tepe there are other sites just like it that the WEF says, "Oh, hey, just go down the road a few miles and you can excavate that one." So if they don't all have them, that one's up for grabs.
So like
corruption, yeah.
Was it Babylon Museum or whatever got ransacked there? Shortly after they got Saddam Hussein. But really, just before that, he was talking, there was talks about him having access to a Stargate or finding a Stargate.
He had a huge palace and it was loaded.
Oh, yeah. So, that Tartarian stuff, and that's basically Tartarian area. Yes. So channel from the ether is there. And then I live in an old house that has the old fat style fireplace where the antennas are there. They were candle holders. They're not candle holders.
People don't understand.
They from the ether through the chimney and lighted up their house. It wasn't fire. Fire is New Age. But these are human. You want to get into a conspiracy? The Tartarians apparently were on Titanic and they purposely sunk that ship so the Tartarians couldn't migrate to New York. So, and then Tartarians are Russia and we got war, Ukraine,
it's everywhere.
So many conspiracies, and that has nothing to do with ghosts and aliens.
No, but you know what? It is a mystery and it is something that has surfaced. It's done a resurgence. Do you find? Over the course of the last year, you're just seeing more and more and more about it.
Everything is cyclical.
This awakening thing.
Yeah, more people are becoming aware.
Social media, they want to know more.
They want to know more, but they're also trying to suppress the media because we're able to.
Because we want to know more.
And we can express more.
That's right. Yes. So, I don't know.
why is there a Stargate there? Why is he covering up? Probably because he's part of it. He's part of it. He's got a lot of money. He can control it. He wants it. Why did
Yes.
those, spend all that money to send people up to space? Because he's in on the space program. You got to sell that lie that space exists and that rockets are going up there and all these other things. You ever look at like pictures of Devon Island in Canada? It looks exactly like
Sorry.
So there's a lot of human explanations for this paranormal stuff that we're seeing.
Right.
Does that mean that these extraterrestrials still exist? I do think they exist. I do believe in source. I do believe that there's a higher power. I'm just not 100% sure whom or what form it is in.
Yeah.
I always say source. It
Yeah.
just feels right to
If
me.
I go on my feeling when working with the map, I feel that source is feminine. I feel that source is local. And that might be local to me, local to here. Like, I don't think it's as far away as everything, how it happens. And then if it's female, that changes the story.
Do you feel like the female is like a mother figure?
Yes, and that's where the interesting connection with the reverse of TESA being offset is connected to the
100%.
mother goddess, a female deity.
100%.
And
Sophia.
yeah,
It's
call
Sophia.
it by many names. So, which came first? Adam or Eve or Adam or Lilith or whatever, Sophia, whatever you want to call them, all these came first.
Right.
But what does that mean? Why does that matter? So we now we get into fallen angels, and we get into
Nephilim.
stuff, Nephilim, and all this other stuff. You got the good guys and the bad guys,
Watchers,
and all that stuff. I resonate with the ground team. So
your boots on the ground. You are. That's totally your type.
But I do resonate with them. Meaning, if I were to categorize myself and be as bold of identifying myself as part of this, I would say I'm a fallen angel. In the sense of, I used to do this work. I said no. I'm part of the punishment. But at the same time, that's why I know what I know now. That's because I lived it. And then at the same time, I understand the reason I'm trying to change it down here now. That's if I were to really believe that this experience is religious in some way or spiritual in some way. If I were to just take off the analytical brain, that's how I feel. Is that what's happening? I don't know. I don't want to, and that feeds my ego and things like that. So I try to not go that way. But it makes sense when I characterize that feeling around how I walk my life, the things I got into, all these other things and whatnot. And I resonate with it, just like you resonate with certain superheroes on movies and stuff. We all resonate from these gods and all these other things, reincarnation and things like that. So the interesting thing with the ground team and the air team, in the Sumerian text, up until the Christian and Catholic text, the sky team were the bad guys, the ground team were the good guys, and then that got flipped. Whereas the bad guys on the ground and the good guys on the top. But if you look at the characteristics of all these other ones, the guy on the top is really the bad one, and the bad one didn't want the people on the ground to do any more than the slavery that they were created for and intended for.
Yeah, right.
And with the ground team that encouraged, that made use of it. So, the female element of that, there had to have been a female that created the ground team, because if you look at the Sumerian mythology, Enki was a scientist who's also a parallel to Poseidon, to Pluto, to Loki, to essentially Lucifer. He is the chief scientist responsible for creating the environment in which the perfect man was made, the atom, the adaptive. Multiple atoms, not just one. But his partner in that element was a female deity, which is our mother deity, which is our mother goddess. So she played a role in the creation of Adam. So,
Mhm.
meaning she carried him and birthed
But you know what you just said? Atom, atom, ATOM. Atom.
atomic. Right. Where does it come from? Right. One letter changes the thing, changes everything down the thing. Especially if those ancient texts were not translated properly. And you would have to have somebody who speaks that language back then and to learn it, or otherwise we're just speculating, right? So there's so many things. Now, if it's smaller to that point where we're just atoms and material, and this is a body with a soul in it, right? Or a soul with a body, depending on how you want to look at it, then you're getting into assimilation, because this is manufactured. This is an implanted thought.
We're just totally getting into Matrix stuff, and that's a show and a half. That's
Well,
what we're doing.
Yeah.
I did a whole
believe
show
in
on the Matrix on the gray zone.
I
It's
do believe
crazy.
in the soul, though.
Well,
So,
there has to be a truth in each of these conspiracies.
Right.
Otherwise, the camps that believe in them won't believe in them. There has to be some stem. So when you put them all together, you get a whole weird rabbit hole conversation like we're having.
Right.
And it's what makes sense, you know?
yeah.
And if we're in a container, then that means God exists, because the container would have been created to preserve us. And I think we're
100%.
living in a world where we're responding because there's an absence of God.
It's our creator. And whatever that may entail.
Whatever that means.
Our
yeah.
creator.
To the deluge and the flood story and all that other stuff.
Yes.
When the
Yes.
floodgates were open through Pleiades or wherever, those portals are, in the firmament, if you are on that side of things, the water came in and flooded everything, which is why you have all these ancient cities underwater. So that, and then
Absolutely.
the storm was put in place, perhaps, and then you have the rainbow after the ark. And why is the rainbow there? Because it's reflecting sunlight.
You could go back to the
Like-
time of Atlantis. They believe Atlantis was a worldwide thing. It wasn't just an island.
Atlantis, I think we could be in Atlantis right now. And the ice wall,
I think we partially are.
is the the inner ring. So if you look at a map of what they think Atlantis was, you have this inner ring, small concentric circles, and then one big one with this little community in the center.
Mm-hmm.
Then everything else is just circled around it. I think we could very well be in Atlantis, and the ice wall would be the first of the outer rings. And there's nothing beyond that, because that's where everything comes from. That makes sense. Like, I mean, if we look at, of course, I'm not a scientist. I'm not an astronomer and all these other things. So I know there's science that will explain that the Earth is rotating. There is science that will explain that the sun is big and that the moon is big, or certain things like that. I understand the math, but like I was saying earlier before, if I use a 13-month calendar and I do a ritual, I'll be right. If you use a 12-month calendar and you do a ritual on that day, you will be right, but you'll also be wrong because you don't know you're wrong.
Right.
The tool you're using to measure with has to be the right tool. So we can both be right at the same time and both be wrong at the same time. So when I use my eyes, my visual cues and things like that, okay, I may not agree on the shape of the Earth, but I have seen enough things with my own eyes and understanding the way things work to know that something about that story doesn't make sense. Mm. So the Earth could be bigger. That's my main take home. I don't care about the shape. I don't care how it moves, because I can't leave. Mm-hmm. I can't do any of this stuff. I have no control of that. It has no effect on my life whatsoever. If I'm trapped here, well, I'm already trapped here. No big deal. But I mean, if there's more land, if there's more resources, if there's more opportunity, and we're not getting it, that's where I have a problem.
I don't think it's just so much land. I think it's, when you say resources, I truly believe that we are having to wake up to the resources that we were given when we came here. with respect to our abilities. We are powerful beings, and we were given many senses, not just the 5 that we've come to rely on because we live in this physical place. There are so many others. And that's what they dumb us up, because if you look at people, can you imagine a mass consciousness, a mass awakening where people just wake up and go, we know who we are and what we're capable of? You'd have anarchy.
Well, and that's
for
why,
the elite.
and that's why there's a lie. That's why the lie is
Correct.
important.
Yes.
Right? Because it's for the greater good. If we knew we were trapped. So that would have to mean that the government knows that the Earth's shape is different. So they have to put enough things in place so the majority don't panic. Why do we matter that we have to be shepherded or herded like that? What is so important about us that this needs to be done? Otherwise, they could eliminate
mass numbers, for one.
Right. So mass numbers for what? Bring us back into slavery? Are we a food source? Are we an experiment? Right.
Well, it feels more like slavery because, you spend your whole life, you're given a number. You take that number, whether it's a birth number, your birth certificate, your social insurance number, or your then you have your employee number. Then you have everything is a number. You die, or give you death. You have a number, and then that's the end of it. It feels like it is being like a type of slavery. We work.
The absence of God. So God,
right.
The physical world may have walked this earth, walked this plane, has ascended, no longer there. So for us to, we're stuck in the 3-dimensional world. So where we're going to find peace is when you're vibrating at a higher dimension. You wouldn't have a conversation like this with someone who's able to reach Q, like the high vibration.
Different density,
because this is all vibration. This is a lot lower.
Well, we're in like 3rd density. That's, there are beings that have elevated to 5th and 6th density.
And where are you elevating? It's in your mind.
Right.
Exactly. Not the physical plane. This is the construct. So everything is there. So we're all living, like there's just so many things. So here's another comfortable truth that also doesn't make sense. You have multiplication in numbers, because like you mentioned numbers, there's only 9 numbers. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That's it. 10 is just a repeat of all those numbers, right? So
there's a 0.
You count your units, but 0. What power? How powerful is 0? Is it nothing, or is it something?
No, that's another show.
1 plus 1 equals 2, right? But if you go 1 times 1 equals 1, right? 1 times itself is 1. That should be 2. But then you have 1 times 0 equals 0. 2 times 0 equals 0, and so on. What makes 0 so powerful that 1 times itself is that 1 that it's multiplied by nothing? Where did that 1 go?
I'm just sorry I caught the 369 because I am 369. I'm March 1969.
Nice.
And I'm March 19th.
Okay, 319.
Yeah, no, I know what my numbers are, but it's just crazy when you said the 36. And my great uncle, I'm a descendant of Fibonacci, but I believe in numbers. I believe that a lot.
It's a secret to the universe. Mathematics is the secret to the universe. Frequency, vibration, everything.
My question is where does the 1 go when you multiply it by 0? How can nothing remove something? You see? So
I understand.
It's not just
let's channel my great uncle. Let's see what he's.
So I have a motto, which is one lie is enough to investigate all truths. And the end of the day, when I'm working on these cases and things like that, I will not be able to figure out what exactly happened because there's so many things that I've missed. My end goal is to collect enough data and enough information through you so I can understand these phenomenons to help other people that may be experiencing it. I have to learn a little bit about everything to know where my help is needed. I'm an expert in none of these fields, but I often put them together because I'm trying to figure out how it makes sense, because little pieces from each of these things must be the real truth. And the real truth is more horrifying than these conspiracy theories.
Oh, absolutely.
And
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, we're slowly, cringing on to the end of the show, slowly but surely. So what do you, I know, I know, I got a little bit of sway over here, but what do you have coming up?
well, I am going to redo my visual evidence database because I want to add some plot points. Start tracking some star forts and some obelisks and stuff, because there's a connection to ley lines and stuff like that. So that's a virtual map I have on my website. But then I'm getting into my report writing and my cases again. So I am overdue for my 2 Canadian current event surveys. So behind me here are years 2021 and 2020, which is compilation of all of the declassified documents that I've gotten from that year of aviation reports that are reported by government sources or pilots from Transport Canada. I compile them together to measure their patterns and their trends to try and determine, if there's a threat or there's any, if these things are unidentified. And that's those 2 books alone are my backbone for when I say that these are a human issue, not an extraterrestrial issue. In the UFO stuff. So I am going to be working on my 2022 and my 2023 because the Canadian government finally released the documents I requested. It takes forever, 6 months, and you got to appeal and all these other stuff. So I'm a few years behind. But then I'm going to work on my first ever ultraspectrum report, where I take the civilian stuff, combine it all together, and try and measure and index what I think might be the ideal experiencer. Because experiencers, I learn more about the phenomenon by talking to the people. I'm not going to be able to find the aircraft in the sky. I can check. Right. I can do all these things to make sure. But the main thing is, end of the day, what do I care about? That you're not being hurt. You're sleeping at night. You're relaxed. All that anxiety is gone. But then I'm also intrigued because I have my own experiences. I'm trying to learn and find someone who's just like me, but like literally just like me. So there's a pattern. And, certain hair colors, certain blood types.
Oh, there are.
Certain things that are common with these experiencers that share the same type of experience.
Right.
And I'm trying to correlate so that way I have enough data that I could possibly bring enough people in the same room and do some experiments. So what I mean by that is, if I can do a blind study where I can understand that certain, majority of my sample has a certain blood type, which isn't the O negative, stereotypical blood type that everybody thinks is the ancient astronaut one. In my research, it's actually AB negative.
It's the rarest of both blood type groups, the AB. Yeah. Negative or positive. But then you look at the golden blood, that's even more rare. There might be 100 people in the entire world who have that.
So there is a mixture of those things walking through and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
Well, there was a woman on the other side of the world who has golden blood, and she found out that a child was having surgery and, of course, couldn't get blood. She got on a plane and went over to donate.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Amazing.
So
what about investigating hybrids?
Hybrid people? Well, it can be investigated. I gotta take their statement at face value. I can do a DNA sample, and it might does it look different? Like, how do you tell? We're all hybrids in some way.
Technically, yeah.
How would you do a DNA sample?
I ask for permission, of course.
No. I mean, where would you send it?
Yeah, I mean, would you compare it to?
They wouldn't, even if they found something different, they wouldn't tell you. They'd go after that person.
That's true.
I own a private investigating company.
It doesn't matter. You're asking for someone's DNA, and if they find something that doesn't fit the norm, they're not going to tell you.
No, but I can.
They're
work.
going to tell you whatever, and they're going to take that information and seek out the person.
Oh, naughty.
Sorry, I forgot. Not sponsored.
Get that hat out.
Nope.
Get that hat out.
Sorry. No, I get it. So without
Yeah.
revealing, I do have people that I know that I can trust that would at least
Right.
Because the government is watching everything.
Yeah, but you have. If I am able to get a blood sample that shows that there's an anomaly that is rare, I would have to get a blood sample from thousands of samples to compare it, and then
Yes,
it would have to be
it's
studied.
very involved.
The likelihood of it being extraterrestrial to that point, I'm not going to see that in my lifetime. I'm not going to put the effort into that. But
There are people who claim it, and they claim to have the evidence via blood type.
You don't know. You might be able to experience that and research that.
It's out there already.
Yeah.
It. Otherwise, listen to their statement and then just believe them as credible. Because who am I to argue? Look at. I'm not comparing them to this, but it's a similar situation where we have the choice to identify, different sexualities.
True enough. Yeah, true enough.
Who am I to argue? Even if you have biological parts of a male and you want to identify as a female or a cat,
Mm-hmm. Who are you to argue? Yeah.
Because we have that freedom. So hybrid, and that's a hybrid,
Yeah. Pretty much.
So
now it's getting damn technical.
Word alien.
Yeah, you're identifying as a cat. You're looking for. You need help.
Well, yeah. There's things, but I don't want to get.
We're not doing a justice to people if they're identifying that way. We're not helping them.
No, but I'm just saying in terms of.
Yeah, I understand. I was just making a joke. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's okay. And just for me, what I plan to do is just try and collect evidence to build a case to suggest that what exactly is happening. Majority of my cases, I would say 95% of my cases are inconclusive. There's not enough evidence to conclude. And the remaining 5%, majority of them are identified. And then there's a small percentage of things that I haven't been able to figure out. And if I can't figure it out, it's because I haven't learned it yet, or there's an argument with the experiencer, and I don't have strong enough evidence to disagree with them. So I just allow it because I don't want, it's their belief.
Yeah, of course.
And but because I'm still intrigued by it, because I want that experimental side. So if I can pinpoint and make a hypothesis of what type of person is prone to have this type of experience, I'm going to invite them all to an event, a private event, of course. And be like, all right, we're all in a room.
Right.
How you do this? Let me see it.
Right.
And for me, then I can start to understand. Like, okay, there's the science, but then that's for me. That's for my proof. That's for my validation of what I want. I will share that with the rest of the world because that's the platform that we have. I have those opportunities, but do I expect to be famous? No, because I just want to have the answer so I can help as many people as we can.
Right.
Evidence is importance changes depending on how big of an issue you're trying to solve.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I know that my experience was not normal, but there are things that I believe that could happen that are normal to justify my stress or my vision or whatever mental crisis I was having. But I don't have any logic to explain how I was able to draw things about ancient things I've never heard of before. At least I don't remember doing. So, but for me, that's good enough for me. But if I need to prove that to the whole world, I want it on the news. I want my name in lights. I need more evidence.
Right.
A lot of the times when I'm working with the people, it's just making sure that they are comfortable so they can move on and hope. End of the day, if you got a voice telling you to do something, you think it's God, you think it's Satan, I don't care, unless it's telling you to do harm to your neighbor.
Right.
What I'm saying? So
absolutely.
and that's what I'm worried about. And I care about the people.
Mm-hmm.
My background in policing, my background in security work, in mental health. I don't like the idea of people being alone.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't say that the experiencer phenomenon is a mental should be categorized as a mental illness, but it could be treated as one until they're able to rule it out. So mental health support should be available for experiencers to rule out other things like schizophrenia or
Absolutely. Yeah.
DID, all those other things. It's important to rule them out. And if it turns out that they have them, then they can get help with that. But at the same time, you can still be, still believe in all these things.
Right. Absolutely.
But I just want to know for my own sake. I'm taking everybody.
Right. It's hard to believe that 2 hours have passed by so quickly. So really quick for people who are actually listening, what is your website?
www.experiencersupport.org. You will find not just me on there. You'll also find everybody else on TESA. We have my show manager, Chris Green, who assists with the back end and help me declassify some documents. And then we have my friend Danny Whitson, who's a comedian who's now taking over my old podcast, Beyond the Tinfoil Hat.
How cool.
And he's on Tuesdays on this network as well at 6 p.m. and he's rocking it too. And then we have several writers, articles, definitely, documents and stuff on that website. So TESA I founded TESA, but TESA is not me. TESA is for everyone. So anybody who needs support, it's the Experiencers Support Association. Anybody who wants to contribute, anybody who wants to add, volunteer, work, whatever it is, you just send an email, admin@experiencersupport.org. Tell me what you like, what you want to do, and then we can have a conversation. We do not recruit. If this is your jam, you got to tell me, and you got to tell me why, and then we'll have a conversation about it. And if it feels good, then I'll trust you. And then find me. I have a Patreon, patreon.com/heedtheworld. If you guys want to talk to me one-on-one, I have a private chat, and I do a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff, so you get to know who I really am and not who I just... Not this crazy psychotic that I just ranted about for 2 years or 2 years, 2 hours.
Well, we had a great time. We had a great time, and I'm so thrilled that you joined us. So everybody, check out the Skeptical Sleuth every Monday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. And for those of you guys who are in the chat room, thank you all. You make it that much more fun. You make it so interactive. We appreciate you all so very much. So remember to check out Roku. The archive will end up on Roku TV as well. You can also check out any of the Facebook pages for United Public Radio, UFO, Paranormal Radio. You'll find that on YouTube also. So tomorrow night, we welcome for the very first time Jeff Selver, and he's going to be discussing his book, The Rising and the Alien Plan to Build an Enlightened City right here on Earth. He says that the Rising, which was an agreement with gray aliens to discover his soul, and it required him to take a leap of faith, sell his possessions, and begin a life traveling from place to place. And it's been one heck of a journey. This isn't the first time I've heard this sort of thing, so it's going to be excellent. And he also will touch on something that keeps coming up a lot for him in his research, and that's the fact that gray aliens keep popping up a little bit in the afterlife. So I don't know, but it sounds like it's going to be fascinating, and I hope you can all tune in. So until then, from Amelia and I and Ryan Stacey, thank you for tuning in. We'll see you tomorrow.